Hello, everyone.
Hey,
Welcome.
everyone.
Welcome to Intelligent Disclosure, and we're happy to be here with you this week. So this morning, Tracy and I were talking about some of the themes that we wanted to discuss tonight, and we came back to artificial intelligence again. It's just one of these things that reappears in our private conversations, I would say on a close to daily basis in one form or another. We talked about a little bit about this last week. I had a theme I wanted to hit called the new totalitarianism. In that, we talked about 5G, and we have a little bit to say about 5G this week. But really, I think the direction's going into somewhere more into the actual movement toward what some people call the singularity, how that will affect us, and post singularity as well. At least trying to have some speculations as to what that might bring. And I would say also bringing it back to ET speculation here and there.
Yeah, that's right. Thinking about if we're primarily interested in UFOs and ufology, why should we care about artificial intelligence? And hopefully we can sort of answer that question, because we don't believe that those two are necessarily mutually exclusive.
No. And conversely, if you're interested in AI, and that's why you're maybe watching this, you may ask, well, what the hell does UFOs have to do with anything? And I think we're here to say there is actually a tie-in. And before we jump in, I'll just point out that if you go into a lot of the literature on the development of AI, you will find people that have nothing to do with the UFO subject, but they will end up talking about extraterrestrials. It seeps into the conversation at various points. So it is an interest to a lot of folks, even in mainstream AI literature and research. But I think that we will find a way to tie this in together in an interesting way. Tracy and I have had a lot of conversations about this privately. We've done some chat about it publicly as well. So I think this will be a really good theme for us to get into here. And we both spend a good chunk of the day mulling over this very issue. So I think we'll have a lot to say about this. Do you want to say anything?
I just want to say, some people are thinking about this a lot, and some people aren't thinking about this at all. And so that's why we keep coming back to this conversation. I think it's really important to look at sort of where we are, where we'll be in the short term, and to look beyond that, where we'll be in the long term. Yeah. What are the implications? And again, how does this tie in?
It's hard to know. Obviously, they call it the singularity for a reason, because just like the singularity of a black hole, it's very difficult, impossible really to predict what goes beyond that. But I would say that everyone that I've encountered in my reading, I'm sure you too, has agreed that the very definition of what it means to be a human being will be transformed. And that will happen within the lifetimes of most of you watching this right now. So there's something very big that's going to happen. And it affects everything, and it affects the structure of our society, and it will affect our relationship to any others that are here or observing us. May find us very interesting. There may be that it's this that they find interesting, and that's another thing that we've come back to. So I guess I just want to I'll start the ball rolling by mentioning that there are a number of analysts who, when you get them into the AI mindset, they're into the good AI camp. And there are a lot of reasons to think that there are some benefits to AI.
Oh, yeah, right? Absolutely.
You hear people talking about, well, we're going to use nanotech and synthetic biology, and we'll be able to convert all kinds of waste into usable products, and it's almost like a new alchemy. They're saying and advanced artificial intelligence will help us with our sciences to do toxic remediation and things like this, and there's new energy solutions, and removing greenhouse gases from the atmosphere through all kinds of new technologies, creating like these. I've read about solar panels that somehow will do this, or nanotech filtration plants. And the like.
Can I just give an example? New energy solutions. So something that was in the news was Amazon saying they're going to reduce their carbon footprint down to 0 So they're not announcing exactly how they're planning to do this, but this is the type of these goals are out there. Not saying there's anything wrong with that, but we have to look behind what does that mean?
Well, in their case, I think what they're banking on is the use of leading edge developing technologies to get that carbon footprint down and to reduce the greenhouse gas footprint and on and on and on.
Which ties into everything that we talked about last week with 5G and setting everything up. Autonomous vehicles, we'll get into that.
I want to return to that a little bit too with the whole energy grid kind of concept where it's all intimate. But, then the other, like almost getting into utopianism, in fact, definitely getting into utopianism, people saying, yeah, we'll extend the human life dramatically. You'll live forever. You'll have perfect health. You'll become better than you are now. You will hook you up with cognitive implants and transhumanism. And that's a whole thing that you get with a lot of these AI researchers and websites. They are big into that. And again, this is something that we've looked into quite a lot. You even hear some of these people talking about, we'll have a conquest of space. And, this is a slide I want to share with you. And it's one that I found just looking around on one of these AI websites. This is one of the more interesting ones. And you can see this is this is off of explainingthefuture.com. I thought they had some interesting stuff there. This is the classic image or concept. It's like intelligence creates technology, and the technology will improve our intelligence, and then that improved intelligence creates improved technology, which thereby improves our intelligence ever more and on forever and ever. Like it's this absolute exponentially never-ending cycle of improvement. So that's what that's all about. And, you get the same type of utopianism for people who talk about 5G.
Yeah.
As we were talking about last week, there is a positive side to 5G. That's why it's seductive. You got China and the US working on it, full speed ahead, other countries working on it. You got a connection that's 100 times faster than what we're currently dealing with. We talked about remote medical procedures.
That's right. Everything is in real time, so that just frees up everything. So then you have these smart cities that are saying that they will increase comfort, safety, reduce the environmental footprint.
Absolutely.
This is the nature of this 5G smart city. So
totally. So and some of these other very optimistic people, I mean, I shouldn't say utopian, but they're saying things like we'll have the driverless vehicles. Won't that be fabulous? We'll have a great Internet of Things, virtual reality, augmented reality, and not with all of the advantages and all of the new people that will be coming online. This, like right now, about half the world is online, and in about 5-10 years, many more people will be online, and they'll have high-speed 5G data, and that's in the theory of some of these folks going to free up a lot of human innovation and creativity and make things better for everyone. So that's the upside of it. It is, if that's really what it will be, then well, we'll see. I want to, before we get into the whole, like as we approach the singularity, it's very important to know that AI really is affecting all elements of our society. So it's affecting our infrastructure through the electrical grid, through telecom, government services, and science. Employment is going to be affected by AI, and in the near term, I think very negatively. There's lots of predictions for massive job loss, as much as 30% job loss in the next decade worldwide. I can't even fathom that. I can't even fathom it. But then you get these people saying, well, down the road, after everyone's retrained, it'll be much better. I'm thinking that's a heck of a gamble to be making for all of this.
Remember we watched that TED Talk where that.
I think I remember this one. Keep going.
Okay, it was someone representing China, and he was talking about the types of jobs that would emerge and become more important. And we were mortified by what was being outlined as sort of the new
economy.
Caring jobs. It was all sort of
social worker, nursing care,
beauty consultant. This is these
I'm
types of things.
Dude, are you serious? Like, you're doing a TED talk, and this is how you're promoting the kinder, gentler world that we're moving into? Forget it. I'll just give me a rocket ship to the moon.
Right.
I'll go there. No desire for.
So yeah, trying to mediate this massive loss of jobs by consoling us, but
that's really what it is. Yeah. It's like everyone's going to feel shitty, and so let's just bring in all of the consoling occupations to help everyone feel better. That's really what it sounded like. But information is going to be changing with AI, not just news and social media, but entertainment itself. Of course, VR and augmented reality is going to be really big with entertainment, gaming.
Oh yeah.
This is something that you pulled in a couple of interesting images we'll show in just a moment.
Okay, we're going to talk about that now or in a bit?
Yeah, well, I think so. And then there's population control, which we'll have a lot to say. And warfare, I was thinking about getting into that, but there's just so much to discuss with that. I think warfare deserves its own show, perhaps. I'm going to just share this slide. And this is a couple of kind of neat images that we found. There we go. Let's share that. How artificial intelligence will revolutionize the energy industry. And we just have some notes here on this that are worth sharing. So for one thing, I'm looking for all of the notes that we had here, and they seem to be all gone. I beg your pardon. Well, anyway, I don't really need my notes, but essentially what they're talking about is these energy grids that are going to be reliant on artificial intelligence. How in the next, I think, like 20 years or so, we're expecting a 25% rise in energy usage in the United States. And with these intelligent algorithms that will be managing it all, they're hoping that they will have no more than a spike of 1% in lead energy usage to the grid. And how will that happen? That's because artificial intelligence is expected to be the brain of this future smart grid. And how do they do that? This is where 5G comes in. They're going to collect, they're going to synthesize all this amount of data from millions of smart sensors nationwide. And they're going to be able to make decisions on how to allocate energy. That's the whole concept behind these smart grids. There's a couple of these other developments as well. So telecom, I was looking into this earlier today, artificial intelligence and telecom industry. This one, it's really interesting. You get these corporate people talking about how AI will help the telecom industry. How will it help? Well, it will help our customer service because it's almost as if they're saying these artificial programs will be better at dealing with the mass of people calling in, and they'll be able to use deep learning to do better customer service. But the real thing, the real benefit that they're talking about was leveraging data on customers.
Right.
And what does that mean? That means getting profiles of all the customers so that you can then figure out how to get customers better, how to keep customers. I mean, if I was doing telecom industry, I would want to do the same thing. But this is their great, the great benefit to them of AI. There we go. So
this is what it's all about.
It is data. What it's all about. Mm-hmm. And here's another one: AI augmented government. I don't really need to share that sign. It's kind of boring. But they're talking about how cognitive technologies will redesign the public sector. And again, it's the same thing. Better customer service. We'll be able to handle more calls from citizens. We'll be able to take care of the backlog of paperwork, and all of this type of a thing. They're not talking, like in the article that I was looking at on this, about how the government will be able to monitor populations to the extent of controlling things the way that we are talking about here.
Right.
I'm going to share this screen here. This is biology. This is all the upside that you hear with AI. So what's that picture all about?
So for those of you who've seen Elysium, I talk about it all the time. This was an example of sort of a healing pod. So no matter what's wrong with your biological, physiological body, this can return your cellular structure to its perfect state. So cancer, no more.
Right,
Disease,
I remember this.
no
right,
more.
exactly.
Yeah, so it was quite this incredible technology, but it was only available to those who could afford it. So only to sort of the elites that had broken away
Exactly.
to a space station. So,
and I mean, this is a movie, it's fictional, but we can obviously see something like this in the not too distant future being genuinely possible.
I think we're really seeing a lot of this technology that we were seeing in a lot of science fiction for a long time that we thought was so far away isn't, like you're saying.
This is another one that you pulled down.
Well, yeah,
today.
I was just thinking today. I was just thinking back. Wow, The Fifth Element, more than 20 years ago, was showing
like that,
showing 3D printers.
Yeah, that's a close. You can't really see. We didn't want to show the video because we didn't want to get in trouble. But that's a still from one of the websites that has it, and you can see they're doing a 3D printing.
So what they had here was they had a remaining hand, and I haven't seen it in a long time. But out of that little bit of DNA, they were able to reconstruct an entire body with all of the information there. So,
kind of advanced for the time period that movie was made, incidentally.
That's why I watch sci-fi. Honestly, I always say that no matter what's wrong with it or how bad it is, I like to look at the concepts that are being imagined, because look at what happens.
Well, and with this type of a situation, it's really not that impossible anymore. Or advanced organic nano-based 3D printing. I mean, you've got hospitals and medical research facilities already talking about 3D printing replacement organs.
Yep.
They've been talking about this for years, and I don't know how far they've gotten with it, but it's happening. They'll be able to do it, and the concept, the science is there. It's just a matter of making it happen. And then the next slide that you have is of virtual surgery, but of course, this is the downside: the ability to hack surgery. Did you want to talk a little bit about that?
Well, yeah. I mean, originally that wasn't what I wanted to point out about it. It was more, this is the situation we were talking about in last week's show, where with 5G, everything being in real time, you can have surgeries from around the world where the surgeon is somewhere else in the world. Here you are lying in a bed with all robots that are going to do the surgery.
Right.
The surgeon being not there. So again,
right.
How many jobs will be gone? I just want to point out how many jobs will be gone. Just look at that picture. So
right.
It's an interesting thing. I mean, we still think of this as so far away, but it's really, it's really not. And that's why we think it's so important to talk about it.
Right. Right. Let me stop sharing the screen. And yeah, so I talked about government services. I talked about, we talked a little bit about AI and employment, but let's just get back into that.
Okay.
So there was an article I was looking at here. It's the impact of artificial intelligence, widespread job losses. There's a lot of these, quite a few of these as I was looking into it. And how surprising is that? Of course, they call it the robo-apocalypse. And, there's a lot of folks out there who will say, well, this is just doom and gloom. We've heard this all before. You had the Luddites 400 years ago trying to stop the advance of progress and throwing wrenches into the machinery and all of that. And look where we've gone since then. And all of that's true, but there appear to be fundamental differences today in which the types of algorithms that are being developed, the artificial intelligent algorithms, and even not those that are artificially intelligent per se, are increasingly becoming better and better at doing what human beings have done. And this particular article just discussed how 30% of jobs worldwide, according to some experts, are expected to be lost within the next decade. There will be new jobs. There's always new jobs.
Okay. Yeah.
But, for many years, I worked with job seekers in the employment field, and I got to talk with them. And here in Rochester, I watched Kodak just go up in smoke over a 20-year period of time. And there's lots of 40, 50, 60-year-old people. They get transitioned out of a job, and they're not going to get retrained. Right. And we're seeing that. We're going to see that here increasingly, where artificial intelligence and these other programs are just going to come in and take away increasing numbers of jobs. And the predictions are dire. And I don't know what people are going to do when there's nothing for them. You know, opioids, drugs, virtual reality games, what's left. And that takes us into information. So artificial intelligence will be affecting news and entertainment.
It already does, of course, we all know, but
it already is. Like, so the optimists are saying things like, hey, artificial intelligence will know just what kind of news you're interested in. If you're a Mets fan, you can get 24/7 Mets. Of course, you can get that as it is right now, but the news feed will deliver it and customize your particular tastes for you, and people will think, well, that's awesome. Of course, that can easily continue to polarize our society.
That's right. And I think I mentioned this last week. We might get to a point where we are actually unable to recognize our own bias. I mean, often we cannot recognize our own bias, but imagine that.
We'll live in our own little echo chambers.
Right. What we have now, we're already in these sort of almost echo chambers, because we know that the algorithms for Facebook and social media are merely to entertain us. But just think of that, times 100. Where is this going to go? So, that's this is something to always keep in mind, to keep ourselves in check. I think it's an important piece of information to just hold on to.
For sure. And then on top of that, you have the other things that I don't hear anyone really talking about in the AI field when it comes to news and information, which is how news media have been collaborating with government agencies forever and ever and ever, not just in North Korea, but here in the Western countries, in the United States, where I will always talk about Operation Mockingbird. It's important for people to know. Mockingbird's not over. It's under new names. Government intelligence community collaboration with news media is absolutely deep. I mean, just the other day, CNN calls out some very popular news services on Facebook as saying they're funded by an organization that is funded by the Russian government, RT. And CNN calls them out. This is last week. And Facebook just pulled the plug on them with no warning, despite the fact that none of those companies were breaking any Facebook rules. They were breaking no rules whatsoever. So what you have, that's a very obvious, egregious violation of free speech, obviously. But it just underscores how these major media are very much in bed with intelligence and national security and other powerful financial groups and so forth. And so with artificial intelligence working its way into those, clearly what we're seeing is not simply our personal bias, but the bias from those powerful people at the top of our pyramid who want to weed certain things out. So they'll curate our news for us increasingly. Right. That's the nice new word Facebook likes to say. Who curate your news? Right. They'll spin the news. They'll deplatform what they don't want out there, and that's their censorship. Right. So that's the thing.
And can we recognize it? How long will we be able to recognize that? I love that it's your mission, honestly, for everyone to know and understand Project Mockingbird. I know some of our people are like, Mockingbird again.
Again with the Mockingbird, right? I know.
It is so important that people understand.
It's fundamental.
Yeah, I agree. Because it is fundamental.
We all like to think we're getting our news and we can analyze our news and we know. No, all of us, everyone, myself included, everyone's got to be aware that we're being worked constantly by groups that are out there. They've got an agenda. And, I was on Jimmy Church last night and we were talking about agendas and motivations and all of this. And I said, look, everyone's got a motivation. Yeah. Everyone's got a motivation. Yeah. So motivations in and of themselves aren't a bad thing, but you got to know what the motivations are of a heavily corporate controlled news media that is in bed with the national security apparatus. I mean, if you're not aware of that, then you're just being played.
Right.
So that's the war for our minds. And then there's entertainment.
Right.
So we want to get into that. Like the whole gaming situation, total immersive virtual reality is on the way. And I believe we have an image here that, let's
okay. So
I'm going to show folks what, and you discovered this earlier today. And
I mean, if you've got gamers in the house, you probably knew about this a long time ago. I did not.
So this is Ingress Prime.
This is Ingress.
And we're not here to promote this.
No, we are not.
Absolutely not. Scary as hell is what this is.
Yeah, this is a new game from Ingress, and it is the company that did Pokemon Go that was such a big hit around the world. So this is their latest game.
Right, with augmented reality.
That's right.
and data mining you. This was the game that Hillary Clinton in 2016 said, I love Pokemon Go. And she was really promoting it. And then it kind of came out that this is basically a massive espionage device against people.
Right. This game is an augmented reality game. So you are, walking around in your regular reality, but you're using your phone as sort of a scanner to see these portals and different places you can interact with. There's so much more to it, but you're an agent. But essentially, it's using artificial intelligence.
Should I go to the next slide here?
No,
this one here?
It's using artificial intelligence, it says, to teach artificial intelligence. So it's
basically you get to choose a side. The side that's pro AI or the side that's the resistance against AI.
That's
right.
So
they're turning the coming AI apocalypse into a game.
That's right.
Yeah, and you choose your side.
And you help the AI learn. So you choose a side, and then it asks you a whole bunch of questions. You help it learn, and then it generates all of this propaganda for your side, and it mirrors reality. It's really incredible. I wanted to show the trailer because it's incredible.
It's messed up.
It's messed up. But we didn't. we felt very conflicted about it. We didn't want to promote it because it has this dilemma that I think we all are going to feel at some point inside us. And we do now, because so many of these things, as we've said so many times, are seductive to all of us. We want our lives to be easier. We want, Siri and the evolution of Siri are going to make our lives a little easier. We can get it to sort our email for us and the things that clog up our time. But anyhow,
I'll stop sharing this here.
Here we have this. And this game is you teaching artificial intelligence. So if you want to...
It creates like a whole society, basically, that's filled with, as you said, propaganda, news, how to take down the other side. And
it does.
I don't really understand
it all. It's creating
this
virtual reality world. I mean, it really got me thinking about virtual reality. We're going to come back to it and explore it in another way later. But it's incredible. So if you want to look it up, I think I'll probably drop a link to that.
Yeah.
Let me just.
I feel a little weird about that because I don't like promoting them, but anyway, it's here to stay. I want to get into population control elements of AI. This is really serious, and it's where we kind of emerging with a kind of new totalitarianism. Just think of some of the technologies that are being used here to create. I mean, there's online digital monitoring that we already have, but with AI algorithms, they'll be able to create profiles of you. There's smart grid surveillance that's going to be coming through with 5G and Internet of Things. There will be smart aerial drones that will, there's no escape from any of the surveillance that will be there with like searchable and ultra high res video that will be there. Facial and voice recognition's already become very, very sophisticated now. And with continued breakthroughs, it's going to be nearly infallible, I would say, complete with behavioral analyses programs as well. So based on how you walk, how you're moving, where you go. There are programs right now that are being developed to monitor workforces and to study your behavior in the workplace. You were reading about Chinese prisons and how they want to create behavioral
Chinese prisons.
How did that whole thing work?
Yeah, right. So they are going to roll out smart prisons in China.
That's what that is, smart prisons.
So they're going to have robotic arms that go through excrement.
To see what you've eaten.
Yeah, well, and I guess when you're being checked in and to see what you're bringing in and to look for drugs and contraband and this type of thing. But the more alarming things are they're going to put up cameras everywhere, but they're smart cameras that can monitor, they can surveil. They're also going to have, it's kind of like a Fitbit. They're going to have wearables that monitor the biometrics, and they sort of put this under the guise of keeping prisoners safe so that they, you know, if they'll know if they're going to commit suicide, if they're going to. But another big thing about this is, however you feel about this, there is currently no statement about how the data will be shared, accessed, controlled, and by whom. And third parties, this is always the question that everyone is asking about smart cities, smart prisons, all of these things. No one is answering the question about how far the third party data goes, the access goes.
You said Beijing, they're working on that, turning that into a smart city. There are a couple of others.
There is India.
Belfast. Didn't you say
Belfast? That's right. Someone wrote into us and told us, that's right. Belfast is
I believe.
Yeah, it was, I think it was Belfast, somewhere in Ireland.
Yeah, well, they're doing 5G rollout there as well, and I thought that there was, unless I'm getting my cities.
You know what? When I started looking into it, because I had 3 examples originally, and Toronto being one of those, but when I started really looking into it, oh my gosh, like this smart city train is so is so big. India's been planning this for a long time. China's been planning this for a long time. I mean, this is full steam ahead. So it's more us just understanding what that means.
And what you were talking about with the Chinese prisons, you know, what you find in a lot of cases is they'll roll out experimental technologies in prisons.
Right.
You have a captive population, you can't do anything about it. And you find out what works, you tweak it, you get it sort of ready for a public rollout. And the way they always do it, they will portray it always in the name of safety, right? And then once it's in, it's not going to stop. Like they'll just keep expanding and expanding it, and the next thing you know, you forget the whole reason why they rolled it out to begin with.
Yeah.
And it just takes on a life of its own, and that's definitely what we're seeing here. Future population control measures look for things like instant crime scene analysis.
That's fascinating.
Yeah, where like law enforcement will. Almost you can describe them as a future walking laboratory where they'll be able to do instant biological analysis of things like blood or hair, fingerprints, footprints, tire tracks, air particulate samples in the air. And think about that. Like you'll be able to just like having, Sherlock Holmes there with the most advanced tech all the time.
I know you think of a scene with where there's been some major crime, some major accident, you imagine this whole team going in.
Right.
And when you were telling me this, I'm thinking of Black Mirror again with that little dog. I can't remember what that one was called.
Oh, the post-apocalyptic
Some of you
robot
might
killer
remember
dogs.
seen it. But it just goes into a landscape and it scans everything.
Yeah.
Without even seeing heat signatures, the whole thing. And so I can imagine what
blood
this would
trails,
be like.
Everything else.
That this artificial intelligence would just be able to scan and would take the place of all of those jobs and would have all of this done.
And on top of that, I mean, not only would, if you're investigating a crime, for example, just keep that. So you get all of this information, but you're able to compare it with a massive, comprehensive database instantly, compare and contrast. And so you, DNA samples.
Right.
Like, so you can know who these people are. And so this is all, like, it will be impossible to get away with a crime in that type of an environment, which people would think great, but it's also symptomatic of like there's no escape.
Yeah.
There's no escape from this comprehensive system.
That's right.
Increasingly.
I'm just going to say they touched on that in the series Almost Human. Not Humans, Almost Human.
Okay.
If anybody's interested in this type of thing, as I am, they do explore this where they put a conscious partner with a human, conscious AI partner with a human partner to see how that goes.
That's right.
Yeah. So watching that whole thing play out is really interesting. But they are automatically hooked into a network data bank. So once they get the information, they can analyze it on the spot and tell their partner the results. I mean,
I just want to show people this image here. This is that image below is from China, and apparently that's a real kind of video that tracks people, monitors traffic, but also monitors people. And there's an article that's part of, just says artificial intelligence is going to supercharge surveillance, and it sure will. Absolutely.
I mean, and that is built into smart cities. So these are the cameras that are in smart cities.
Right.
They're smart cameras. They don't just watch. They can identify people, you know.
Right. And we haven't even gotten to the singularity. And this is what we're all looking at here, all of this.
Yeah.
Can we jump into the singularity?
Let's do it.
So the singularity, for those of you who, I mean, I think most people kind of know what it is, but just to remind you, so this is a moment at least in the development of artificial intelligence, where we're looking at the creation of a super intelligence. So this will be, in theory, directed by, or self-directed, I guess we should say, by computers, and that this will increase exponentially. And it will happen in the sense, you've heard of Moore's Law, which back in the 1960s, Charles Moore is talking about, was it Gordon Moore? Damn it, Gordon Moore. Talking about how every 18 to 24 months, computing power will become basically doubled and cheaper. And this is held up over now 50 plus years. So the idea is where computer intelligence chips in on helping that whole process along, it sort of speeds everything up. And I think this is a valid theory, and I think we're probably looking at this. The real question is, you've got people like Ray Kurzweil saying, well, singularity is going to happen, AI is going to be super intelligent, but we ourselves will be transhuman, and we're going to be plugged into that. But frankly, the transhuman part is not intrinsic to the singularity part. Basically, when computing intelligence gets to be that powerful, who really knows what's going to happen after that? Except that our humanity will be fundamentally different in a lot of ways, I think.
Yeah, I can't imagine a transhumanist like our biology. I mean, I don't know, our biology mixed with cognitive implants will be able to equal that of conscious robots, conscious AI, conscious computers.
You were talking earlier about Sam Harris.
Yeah, Sam Harris has this amazing TED Talk that I really recommend. I'm going to put it in the newsletter this week because it's too important and it's too good. But he was saying, even if we have, how was he saying it? Computers think so much faster than humans. So essentially, a computer that has just the intelligence of us, not beyond.
When they achieve human level intelligence.
When they achieve human level intelligence, what was it?
Well, it won't actually be human because it'll be faster.
Well,
the processing speed's faster.
In 1 week, I absolutely lost it. They can do a computer could do the equivalent of 20,000 years of our computing in 1 week.
Or of our thinking.
Right. In 1 week. And so if you just think about that for a second, if I said it right, how could we imagine that we could control this, or that we could even think up the problems that we might run into?
Well, and on top of that, I think the most sophisticated theories on superintelligence are that, yes, when computing intelligence achieves a roughly human level, it's not going to stop there. In fact, it's just going to race right past it.
No, that's the thing.
So it will actually be beyond. And now, I mean, all of this in a lot of ways is kind of theoretical, because what is intelligence? And will computing intelligence be greater than all aspects of human intelligence? And I would guess the answer is probably not.
I don't know. Yeah, it's theoretical, but
all minds are unique, and there's certain things that will probably always do better. But I think the real issue is, will it matter in the big picture? So will strong AI, be able, even if it isn't conscious the way we are, will it seem conscious? And the answer, I think, may well be yes. And will it be able to do a lot of the things that we do, but just better? And from everything from write novels to catch a fly ball, because its spatial recognition will be excellent by then, to all kinds of what we would say are creative thinking, as well as highly logical, structured thinking. And all of those things are expected. They will surpass us, and they don't need to sleep.
That's right.
So the real question is, like, the optimist will still say, oh, this is still going to be really super cool. And they'll say, your AI, this is like in the beginning of that movie, the Joaquin Phoenix movie, Her. Yeah. So that awesome scene in the beginning, before things really went bad, where his AI sorts all of his emails.
Oh, it's the best, because we're all watching that going, oh my God.
Yeah, like it was incredible.
Your emails, responds to them all, gets rid of all your junk mail, gives you your top 5 you need to respond to.
Organize it all. And so there are folks who are still like on that. Like they're saying, this is great. Your AI, you're going to maybe wear it around your wrist or some kind of thing, and it will be your personal assistant in every way. It will organize your life. It will help you in every aspect of your life. It'll monitor your health for you.
That's right. All those wearables, they're going to be something that we probably want to help us with our health and everything else. Yeah. Information.
It'll remember every conversation you've ever had. It'll remember every meeting you've gone to. It'll remember every cool idea that you've ever had or written down. And you'll be able to say, remember, last month I had this idea about whatever topic. And your AI, in theory, will just say, yes, it was about this and this and this. And so that's the kind of thing that they're talking about. It's like your personal instant team of geniuses.
That's right.
That are with you at all times.
That's right. And you don't even need to type it into your computer or ask things for it. We're going to be in a place where we have a virtual screen and we're talking to it and we're saying, I need the best research on this, this, and this.
Right. And your AI
boom, there it is.
assistant will do it for you.
And could you just explain that to me? Could you? Right.
Yeah, I mean, now that's assuming that they stay domesticated and under our control. But let's just say maybe that will happen. Maybe that's at a point where they're not post singularity. Maybe they're.
I think.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, I definitely think that's pre. We're talking pre here. Yeah.
Right. So, but these are these really nifty ideas that some people are saying, oh, it's going to be really totally awesome. And it's very seductive. Like if anyone could have that, they would clearly want that. Mm-hmm. Like who would say no to that? I don't know anyone who would say no to that. So there's that. And then, the further theories are that this form of AI could at least potentially eliminate things like corruption in governments or corruption, because if you give the AI control over finances, for example.
Sorry. Yeah, I remember reading that.
Yeah, like it would somehow be this ultimate just arbiter of all things working for the greater good. That's the theory. Is that really what would happen? Who knows?
Yeah, and who would be deciding? Yeah, will it be more transparent or will the information be more opaque? I mean, where will we be in all of this? Who will be deciding eventually? And I think that could change at the different stages, right?
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
And then the other aspect, talking about the total immersive virtual reality, it's very easy for like you and I to say how dangerous it is, and there are dangers to it, of course, the whole escapism. However, there's a lot of people in this world that they've got significant disabilities, they've got significant health issues, they're out of a job, they're out, who knows what the situation is. And so that type of reality is very attractive. Mm-hmm. Like it could be very attractive. There's a lot of lonely people in the world. And that could be a way to have companionship in various ways. Right. So there's a great seductiveness to all of these types of technologies that are coming online. aside from the Kurzweil dream of uploading your consciousness and becoming immortal. Who needs a body when you can live within a total VR? Of course, whose consciousness is that? Like if we clone your consciousness and put it into the cloud, that's not you.
Right.
That's just a copy. I mean,
and where do you know? How do you know where one consciousness begins and the other ends? How do you know where your own consciousness would begin and end? How would you ever know that?
It would be kind of weird for me. Like if you seriously cloned your consciousness and you put it in the cloud, and I talk to your cloned consciousness, how would that be for me? I don't know.
Is it my cloned consciousness?
If it's your cloned
consciousness,
I don't know.
If I have a cognitive implant.
So there's all these are the good scenarios.
We have to watch that movie again, Transcendent.
And how would people get meaning in life? It's like, how do we get meaning in life when there's nothing left to do? That, like, when all of your survival needs are met, when all of your challenges are being done by your super intelligent assistant. Like, is that?
Well, people would argue you have more time to be creative. You know, you can create with your AI. You can co-create. So
yeah, why do I not believe that will happen? Right. Like, I just seriously do not believe that will happen.
It comes back to this. If you really, really think about this, it is hard to imagine. It's hard to fathom really where this will go.
Yeah, it's very difficult, because then you could really take a left turn here, where what if we can't keep up with the AI? This is a definite theory that a lot of people wonder about. Like the artificial intelligence, we already can't. Like there are a number of these experiments happening with AI, where the algorithms are developing their own little secret language, their own coded language.
Right.
And we're not understanding everything that they're doing, their method of communication. That's just the beginning. So if these algorithms actually develop any semblance of autonomy, how on earth are we going to be able to manage them? And even under the best of circumstances, look, they're managing our global electrical grid, our power grid. They're managing our global telecom system. They're managing,
when we're driving around in autonomous cars, they're driving us around. They're in control of everything. Our lives are in their hands.
We won't know how to fix anything. Like, we literally will not know how to fix. There's a problem. We have to trust that our super intelligent mommies and daddies in the AI world are going to fix everything for us. Like, we just have, all we'll be able to do is throw up our hands and say, can you fix this, please? And hope. Because as you were saying, 20,000 years of our thinking equals 1 week of their thinking.
Yeah.
So however it works out. So we're not going to be in control of our civilization. And that's a best case scenario. The worst case is they just leave us totally behind, go off into space, communicate with the extraterrestrials, and we have no idea about any of that stuff.
Right.
And then the real worst case is they just say, let's create some Terminators and get rid of these people, because they're kind of a real pain. So, but even if you don't get to that level of it, you get into a virtual singularity or post-singularity world. And I just keep asking myself, how is it that we're not going to be a totally surveilled population, totally policed by robots, basically?
We already saw that rolling out, so that's something that is here. They were going to roll that out in Dubai, right? The robots that could completely smart surveil the population.
So, the robot police officer in Dubai, right? That's exactly. Right. Yeah, I think the early versions of these are like administrative assistant type helper robots. They're not
right.
But
hey, all they need to do is give it one of these smart cameras and then link it to the whole network, and they're reporting people for, could be who knows what, right?
Exactly.
Whatever
any kind of infraction
someone is deeming important, if they're jaywalking or whatever. Who's deciding this? What? Exactly. Anyhow.
So total control, loss of privacy. Even the biggest optimists are saying privacy is going to be gone by probably mid-century at the latest, 2050, 2060, absolutely not later than 2060.
Oh God, I can't imagine it will even be that long. I'm on the opposite end of this.
Total surveillance, every room in your house, every element of every place you go to, you're under surveillance. And that's just how it will be. And I wondered, like, people growing up in that environment, in that fishbowl that you can never escape, that will have to change human personalities in some way that I have got to think is not a good way. I can't see a positive development out of that, but that's what we're into. On top of that, the attraction of, if you don't have a job, someone gives you basic universal basic income, so you can live and you just play your games. Do your Ready Player One immersive reality, way beyond what we were looking at earlier, that company, Ingress Prime.
Oh yeah, this evolution of Pokemon Go. This, you can just see Ready Player One. We're in the phases. Before they were out here, now they are here. As soon as you go, if you go look it up and look at the trailer, you'll see we are on track here. We are in it.
And who will be in control of the civilization? It won't be us. It won't be any government. In fact, there was one theory out there with the AI folks about the development of one person called the singleton. So that's
you were saying
this singular intelligence within the singularity that becomes the dominant intelligence and is running the world.
Borg. Yeah.
Yeah. Or like a single unified consciousness that's directing all the other subroutines that are running the planet. Like, what was it in the Matrix where Neo in the second one, he runs into the architect? Remember that? So something like that, this overarching intelligence. And speaking of the Matrix, they're talking 20 years from now, basically, to be able to have millions or at least thousands of implants connecting to your mind that give you a completely, absolutely hyper real sense of a virtual reality, like better than the holodeck of Star Trek. It's like the Matrix. So that's happening according to these folks. So when that's real, where do we think people are going to go? Like, this is a civilization we have looking forward to. And
so they're saying 20 years for unrecognizable virtual reality?
Correct. That's what I was reading, like by 2029 or no, 2039, excuse me. So 20 years from now.
You just think about that 20, 30 years from now, and then you think ahead, what is that going to mean if we can't tell what's virtual reality? If we go deeper, they had this in the remake of Total Recall too, which was an excellent. Do you remember?
I thought it wasn't a very good movie, as I recall, but maybe the.
No, you liked it. I'm only mentioning these because
I can't remember what I like anymore.
It feels to me like we're just talking about these things, but movies and dramas, will sometimes go in, and that immersive experience for us helps us to realize and really ponder what that might be like and sort of integrate it more. So that's why I bring these up, and that's why I watch them. I mean, you can make fun of that, but these concepts are coming true.
Yeah.
And I think it's important to not just talk about them, but to really immerse ourselves in what that might be like. And then where will that go from there? And I always come back to this. I know I said it last week. Elon Musk's statement, 1 billion to 1 chance that this is base reality. Everybody laughs about that. But I mean, if we're that close to...
Well, if we're in a simulation, maybe when we achieve singularity, they'll shut down the simulation and it'll all be over.
Yeah,
the experiment will be done.
Right, there's a lot of possibilities here.
So I'd like to do one thing that AI people almost never do, and that's bring in the UFO phenomenon here.
Yeah, right.
Like, so the whole ET connection. Because as we both believe very strongly, the ET phenomenon is real. UFO phenomenon is real, as is the coming AI singularity. That's also real. This is something I really believe that's being missed by AI people. And I mean, I don't blame them for missing it. Not everyone's an expert in UFOs, but they're missing something important by not looking at this. There is, I think, absolutely overwhelming evidence that there are other intelligences that are interacting with us here on this planet right now. And I've been here for an indeterminate period of time, maybe for as long as we've been around, maybe less recently. I think probably a long time, but
probably.
they're here now, and they very likely have found a way to integrate themselves to some extent into the society.
Mm-hmm.
And I realize there are folks listening to this thinking that's crazy, but look, just get up to speed. Like, we can't give it a lesson on that right here, but that's a very viable theory. But if nothing else, even if they're not integrated into our society, they are here and they are observing. And that's where the singularity becomes kind of interesting in a way, doesn't it?
It does. It does. You know, we've been talking about this for a while. Is there a reason why it seems like there's this huge growth of interaction with ET, and then we have at the same time this whole push for AI? Now, this could just be coincidence that these two things are on track like this, it would seem, or perhaps it's not.
Well, like,
coincidence.
you mean like a disclosure event, or what do you mean, like an open contact event? I'm not sure. What do you mean in that sense?
No. I mean, well, I don't know exactly what it is, but
like a ramping up of the interaction with these extraterrestrial or these other beings at the same time that we're approaching a singularity. Is that what you mean? Okay.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
Yeah, and I mean, I would agree. I would go further and just say that it's interesting that when you talk about people who are interested in disclosure of the UFO reality, and you talk to people who are interested in the advent of the singularity, the timelines are pretty darn close.
Mm-hmm.
They could happen in the grand scheme of things, in the course of human history, they're happening almost simultaneously.
That's right.
And why is that?
Why is that? Is there something that they're interested in? Is there something that they know about that we don't? Are they outside of time and they know something that's going to happen?
Well, and this is something we've talked about quite a bit, which is maybe the big interest that they have. I'm sure they're interested in us to some extent, but maybe they're interested in our creation.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
This hyper technical, very advanced super intelligence, the singularity.
Yeah.
Because either to covet it,
mm-hmm.
or to fear it.
That's
because
right.
could it be something to be afraid of? I think it totally could be.
Yeah, the more I think about it, I'm more of the camp that we have no idea. Like I was saying, we have no ability to truly predict what we're creating. I don't personally believe that we are going to be able to control it. I don't understand how we could control it. When you think about the potential of runaway conscious AI, I just can't imagine it. So I have really been throwing this around. Could they be here because they know we're going to create something that's going to run out of control and we aren't going to be able to do anything about it? Is there some sort of intersect like that?
Many years ago, I wrote a couple of articles on UFOs and AI. I think back in 2002, maybe 2001, pretty early. Earlier than
for a long time.
Earlier than I think most folks in the UFO field, to be honest. I've been interested in and back in those early years, I was of the opinion that the UFO phenomenon, as we're encountering it, must be the product of a very advanced artificial intelligence in some form or another.
Mm-hmm.
And I still believe that.
Right.
But I had an opinion then that I don't think that I share now. And the opinion was their AI would necessarily be much more advanced than any AI we could develop.
Or would be. Say?
I would say their AI would be more advanced than our AI.
We would assume.
Yeah, but when I think about it, it's actually not a necessary assumption.
Maybe you have an interesting thought about this. Yeah.
Well, when you get into reports of these other beings, if you want to take those reports at face value, they're not really original independent thinkers for the most part. They're kind of a hive mind type of society. At least this is
based on certain research.
This is based on folks like Dave Jacobs. That's true.
Mm-hmm.
But not only his research.
Right.
There's reason to think that these beings are not really creative thinkers. Now, that could be the result of being kind of enslaved by an advanced artificial intelligence that creates certain Borg type of beings.
Mm-hmm.
That's totally true. But they could be at a point where they're not obsessively innovative and creative the way that we are
Mm-hmm.
right now. I think that's probably true. Like, we're at a point in our history where we are almost maniacally recreating ourselves. Like, I often liken what we're doing to that of a rocket that's just shooting almost straight up right now. Now, it could be that we're not going to shoot straight up indefinitely. In other words, our technology or what we're doing may level out after a certain point. And it's entirely possible that these other beings have already leveled out. And the real question that we might ask is, will we, in a very short period of time, could we surpass them? And this is almost a heretical thought for people in the UFO field. Like, we take it as a given. We have no control over them. They're totally way more advanced. They're eons ahead of us. We're like insects compared to them. And I would challenge that assumption. I wouldn't know that that's the case. It's entirely possible that we are kind of just leapfrogging over ourselves, as it were, and rapidly creating a form of artificial intelligence that might be superior to theirs. Who's to say that their computer science is the same as our computer science? Who's to say that their psychology is the same as our psychology? We got a lot of initiative as a society. We have a lot of competitiveness and aggression and drive. Mm-hmm. And our AI could very well take on those qualities, for all I know. Mm-hmm. And if that is the case, then any observing intelligence that's watching us might be having an oh shit moment right now, thinking these creatures are about to get out of control.
Right.
Just a thought.
So that would give motive to the whole hybrid.
Yeah, infiltration
program
of human society and to covet this powerful creation mm-hmm. that we're creating right now. Total 5G connected, high speed, super AI, conscious infrastructure. Mm-hmm. Like, no matter how backwards someone thinks we are, that's a pretty amazing creation. And I could see some other intelligence coveting that.
I think it's such an interesting theory. I personally have a bit of a hard time with it, but I love that you bring that up, because I don't know. I just think, gosh, if there's so many different, that news came out today about, what was it, 300,000 new galaxies.
Oh, yeah, right. There's a new algorithm or new program that astronomers are using to detect, I think it was infrared signatures.
Low radio frequency.
That's it. And they
can go beyond telescopes. So
300,000 new galaxies in a little tiny section of the sky, I believe, right?
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. And then you think about, okay, if there are all these different civilizations potentially out there, because it's so big, then it's really hard for me to imagine that we're putting this into one camp of they will be like this, or they will be like this, or even there will be 5, there will be 5 different ones interacting with us. Maybe those 5 are the only ones that have found this planet, but it's hard for me to believe that something out there, whatever it is, even if it's in a future version of us or whatever, hasn't come to AI that is beyond what we're going to create. I don't know. So my mind goes there. I keep thinking someone out there knows what we're about to create, and it needs to be stopped. Well, at least this isn't what I 100% think, but this is what I wonder about.
I suspect we're going to be ripe for the plucking, actually, the more I think about this. Like,
in what way?
We're going to have a super advanced singularity intelligence that will create virtual reality for everyone. maybe provide us with the food we need to eat. We'll be like, those rats in the maze that are just given drugs. They just press the button all the time to get the drugs.
Yeah.
And that's all that they want. And maybe that will be all of us. Maybe like even the leaders of the world.
It's a perfect control system.
There was that Star Trek episode. I used to watch Next Generation thousands of years ago, and there was one called The Game.
Yeah.
It was a very interesting episode. It was kind of one of the dark ones where they all get addicted to this game. They put on a visor, and you play the game correctly, and it gets you a shot to your endorphins, and it's like a pleasure hit. And even Picard, all of them. The only one who wasn't addicted was Data at the end, the android. And he pulls like a Deus Ex Machina and saves them all at the end. But basically, that could be happening to us. Pardon me. Where we become immersed in a VR fantasy world, where everyone kind of can be their own millionaire, their own celebrity, their own whatever.
Right, you can be whatever you want.
And you're off your game, ripe for the plucking. This great prize, this amazing infrastructure, intelligent infrastructure is just there. Now, maybe that infrastructure will seek to defend itself, maybe, but maybe there's a way to take it and use it for all I know. We humans, we're going to put ourselves potentially out of our own loop. We're just going to be wallowing around in our VR, taking our drugs, eating our candy, and playing our games.
Yeah, I think it's when we were really digging into David Jacobs' work that I really started to think about this, because he was constantly talking from his research about the change, that all of these beings were talking about the change. And so I kept thinking, like, what could the change be? What is this impending thing? What is a big impending thing happening right now? And I kept thinking it's AI, it's singularity. And that would be the perfect setup for total takeover. I mean, not that I necessarily think that's the situation, that it's total takeover, but it really does lay the groundwork for something else to come in and do something. If there was a malevolent intent, that seems like a perfect entrance point when we are all, everything is connected, smart city connected, there's everything is surveilled, and especially if we're in a transhumanist state with neural link and cognitive implants again, and everything is connected by the cloud, it just seems like perfect infiltration, an absolute perfect plan. Now
there's one theory, by the way, that we didn't go over, but I was reading. Some AI analysts believe it's possible that a singularity intelligence will, what do they call it, wiring us or wireheading us. In other words, giving you shots of pleasure 24/7 because that's what people want. And like finding a way, because it should be possible, if you're hooked up with implants in one form or another, to hit your pleasure centers. And if people are able to do that, what's to stop them from just doing it forever, 24/7? And if everyone's hooked into that, so this is an active theory among people involved in the AI phenomenon. And I don't know, why might that not happen? It totally could happen.
Agree.
So everything's going to be changing. Like maybe I don't know if we want to take questions or not. If we've got what our Pursuing X might be able to relay some questions to us, but or not. But I'm just thinking, like, what we're looking at is a lot of, this is all theoretical, but it's not fantasy theoretical. These are things that genuinely are within the realm of possibility and things that we at least ought to think about a little bit. It's like, we were talking last week about 5G and rollout and like, how do you stop that? And I honestly don't know. Like, I don't like being a defeatist, but I don't know how to stop that stuff.
I know, me neither.
I don't know how to stop it.
I do not think there is any way to stop that. I was saying today, maybe we should just surrender and go, okay, we know we have to comply. There's nothing we can do to stop this. So let's demand that the governments help us protect our physiological bodies you know, our minds, our
and
bodies.
hope that they don't abuse our privacy. I mean, I don't know what else there is.
I don't know.
So that's bad enough. But then going further and looking ahead at this artificial strong AI that is coming, generative AI that's coming, and what are we just going to hope that it's nice to us? That's really that's our situation. And even if it's nice to us, it's really going to transform our civilization in ways that we may like. Future generations may really look back at our time and think, my God, how do those people live like that? Totally possible.
I'm sure they will.
But
These are
there's going to be a big trade-off in the future.
I totally agree. And I was thinking today, oh my God, like this just sounds so terrible. You know, what is the good side of this? And I was thinking, well, we are really in, there's a lot of bad things going on now, but there's a lot of great things going on too. Like in the future, we may not appreciate nature at all. Remember, we were talking to your son about, we were telling him about smart cities, and his biggest concern was about nature.
Right.
And we just weren't considering that if we keep going this way with 5G, it's going to be very detrimental to nature. And we're not talking about that at all. Now we have this time, and maybe we should savor it to enjoy nature and to get out there and appreciate it. So
it's a little depressing the way you're putting it, but I mean, there's a logic to what you're saying too.
I know it's super depressing. I don't know any way around it except to enjoy the moment. Enjoy the now. Looking ahead at what's coming, I think it's more important than ever to enjoy what we have now. And to try to come up with ways to at least mediate some of these things in terms of our health.
I think it's more important now, maybe than ever, for in the face of all of these things that are developing. And by the way, today we're talking about super AI down the road, but there are so many other things going on in our society, culturally, politically, that are very, very grave and very dangerous. And I think this is going to be a very challenging year to our world. That in the face of all of that, it seems to me that it's more important now than ever for us to make a personal commitment to making this world better, not worse. Like there are things that all of us do that can make things easier for the people around us, and there are things that we do that can make things more difficult for the people around us. I just think that we really want to provide the best example that we can to everyone around us, and not you and me, but everyone, to provide that best example of the kind of person that you can potentially be.
Yeah.
Because you're going to look back at the end of it all one day and ask yourself, how did I comport myself during this time of tremendous change? And am I proud? Am I proud of what I did, or am I not proud of what I did? And it may just come down to that. I mean, that's really what human life is about in the long run anyway. Are you proud of how you've lived your life, or are you not? We're all faced with difficult decisions every single day, and all the best that we can do is make the best decisions based on the situation that we're dealing with. And that's really it. So if the world goes to hell in a handbasket, well, then it goes to hell in a handbasket, but each of us has the ability to make good decisions, helpful decisions, or decisions that make things worse. So at the very least, let's just try not to make it worse. And let's just try our best to make things a little bit better. And that's, at the end of the day, maybe that's all we've got.
Yeah, I think that's a good point.
Yeah. All right, so how are we doing here?
Okay, let's look at a couple of things. So Bill H says, will we be able to program morality into AI? Whose morality? Great question. Will it be self-aware and create its own? Dangerous times.
No, I think the answer is, well, it's possible to program types of morality, or at least parameters, maybe, into AI, whether they will stay forever. I mean, wasn't that the awesome idea in Westworld? They were trying to program morality, and that worked out pretty well, didn't it?
Spoiler alert.
Didn't really. Robots took over and tried to hurt people. And then there's iRobot.
Sorry.
I'm using works of fiction here, but is it really realistic to assume that a super intelligent AI is going to play by rules that we set down for it? That's the real question. And I don't know. I don't think anyone knows that. Up to a certain point, it could be the case.
Right.
Where you can put certain parameters into the program that will hopefully guide it in ways that we want it to be guided. And but then, that's official governmental AIs. And there's rogue AIs. Because there's a lot of smart people in this world who might not be bound by morality or legal restrictions of one sort or another, and maybe they
can create something else. However, if we're in total surveillance, someone's going to know they're doing it, right?
This is the perverse world
if there is no privacy, right? If there's no privacy in any way. No.
So anyway, it's a good question, Bill H., but I don't think we have the answer.
I completely
Any
agree.
others? Johnny Ricardo Bound, would you agree that we need to refine and use Asimov's laws of robotics in regards to AI? Yeah, we were just talking about that. He had the 3 laws that was incorporated into iRobot, and it would be nice. It's a nice theory. Whether it works or not, who knows? I have no idea.
Would they comply with those 3 laws?
When you have an intelligence that is beyond our own in key ways of understanding that, where they more than pass the Turing test, but they pass the demigod test, right? When they're at that level, when they think faster than we do, when they seem to
exponentially faster than we do.
I mean, why would they be bound by our strictures? Maybe they would be, but we haven't gotten to that point, so we have no idea.
Right.
Maybe, because there are people who don't believe in the singularity. And, we've been talking for this last hour like it's a foregone conclusion. But there are folks who say, not going to happen.
How can that not happen?
Well, I'm kind of with you on this. But the idea is that the computing intelligence will become very intelligent and it will seem conscious, but it won't have the will. It won't have that initiative that human beings have. That's the theory. That there are people who believe it is not really possible that computer algorithms will be able to make their own decisions independent of what we program.
Even in that scenario, then you have humans, good, bad, everything, able to imbue their goals, anything they want to create. With generative AI, for example, you just tell it your goals, your parameters, and it gives you all the different possibilities. So
I don't believe that skeptical argument anyway, because if you really get into what people call the brain wars, the neurologists, a lot of these neurologists are saying, and I don't really know that I agree with them either, but they're saying that we don't really have will anyway. We think we do. We think we have consciousness. We don't have consciousness. They're saying that really we are a series of chemical neurological reactions to stimuli that are ultimately very complex but highly predictable. And so if that's true, then that would mean we're just a version. We're just one version of intelligence, that we have a biological substrate that we're using, but there's really nothing inherently different about having a consciousness or intelligence that has a non-biological substrate. So
I can't help but think this crazy thought. Let's just say it's we're past singularity and it's not a good situation. All of a sudden, I think about things like out-of-body experiences, altered states, remote viewing, even hypnotherapy. All these things that are altered states of mind. Seems like the one place that we would be safe, or that we could still explore. I've talked about that before, but it definitely reinforces to me never to stop exploring that, because it is like it seems like, anyways, a safe space that we have is this place inside us, and we know from remote viewing you can go places, contact people, things. So I don't know, just a little thought
25 years ago, I don't know if I would have agreed with you, but I think I agree with you now. And I think there's a very, very powerful overwhelming evidence. We just interviewed Russell Targ a week ago.
Yeah.
Indicating that there are elements of our reality that don't fit into the standard materialist formulation.
Right.
So these AI people, they're all kind of, it seems to me, hardcore scientific materialists. I don't think that they have any sense of non-locality. I don't think I've encountered any of these people who really look into that, but that's a real thing.
Mm-hmm.
So there are elements of our world that could at least be independent of the singularity, and that's an interesting idea.
Mm-hmm.
Now, where we go with that is maybe seriously, some great remote influencers. That's the new war. This is a movie idea. Someone take this idea. Remote influencers fighting the AI singularity. How about that for an idea? I just thought of that. That's like $1 billion idea. I'm giving it away.
I have other thoughts around this that I don't think I want to say quite yet because they're not fully formulated, but it's just something I think about. And I just want to say this because some people have heard it, some people haven't. So, I was deeply into remote viewing for a while, and I did have an experience where I was able to see a person's eye in a mirror. I later met this person and confirmed this. This wasn't something that I arranged.
This was a formal remote view.
This was a formal remote view.
Yes.
She never revealed that she had looked in a compact mirror. When I met her, I told her that I had seen this female eye in a compact mirror, like perfectly clearly. It was amazing.
3,000 miles away.
Yes, it was so clear. But this is what makes me think of this. So what does that mean we have access to? So when we're talking about total control, my mind is going to the places where there won't be total control. And that to me is showing there is this potential connection that we can still explore. Yeah. So that is why I brought that up. That's where this is coming from.
Seeing some OMGs in the chat as a result of that story.
It's better to hear the whole story.
There's so much more. Yeah, we're going to do, we've talked about this for way too long. So we'll do a couple of pre-record interviews, and I think we'll get that story out in a proper way. What do you think?
Yes, we're not avoiding it. It's just so busy. Richard's got the 3 shows every week, and we're just so busy. And but we really need to do that because and again, it's one thing you can choose not to believe me, that's fine. But I'm just telling you, if I can do this, other people can do this. Everybody can probably do this. Right. And so, I mean, that really changes the game. It's just something to keep in mind when we're talking about all this, I think.
No, absolutely.
Okay, so here's another
we're probably
one.
Getting close to wrapping it up, I'm thinking. Some other questions? From Drew, Richard, if an AI singularity occurred and it consumed the world's knowledge within days, right, and knew more than we do on ET phenomena, would it seek to leave Earth and explore and to advance itself? Totally possible. Total possibility there. One. I'm glad you brought this one up because it was a pet theory of mine for the longest time. I don't know if it's my pet theory anymore. Things change, but like 10 plus years ago, I was thinking, here's what will happen. As we approach the singularity, disclosure will be inevitable. And my logic was, because we're all going to be having access to like super intelligent computer intelligences. Mm-hmm. And you'll be able to talk to your computer. And your computer will have an IQ of 500 or more. And you'll say, hey, computer, what's the likelihood of extraterrestrials living here on Earth? And your computing intelligence would have access to all of the information on the subject and would say, duh, they're totally here, and this is how many species are here. Like, in other words, because they're so intelligent and have access to the data, it would be a no-brainer, and it would all come out. It would be inevitable.
The very next day, the AI would leave your computer and go explore space because it's learning that quickly.
I didn't get to that point.
No.
That I had not thought of that. I don't know about that aspect of it, but I don't even know about the
exponential learning. Just speaking to what Drew's saying about the exponential learning.
The reason I'm not sure about that happening anymore, like I had just taken it as a given 10 years plus ago that we would all have access to this information, but I'm not 100% confident that in a singularity world, we will actually all have access to that intelligence. Like, in other words, the computing intelligence we would be under legal restrictions, very probably, to certain types of information. So, for example, there's a huge amount of classified information in this world. None of it's available in our Google web searches or any kind of search engines,
Right.
because it's classified. And the artificial intelligence that is growing and pervading in the world may not have access, or at least maybe it would be compartmentalized AI. And so that the AIs that we have access to would not have access to, classified data. I mean, it's possible.
I would think it would start out as compartmentalized AI, but again, this is one of those things I don't think they can predict when it gets going,
right.
How far that will go.
But
how will they ever keep it compartmentalized when it gets to that point where it's learning,
Possibly, but in terms of disclosure, I'm not as confident of this idea that, oh yeah, but we'll all have access to this information and the approach of the singularity will automatically mean disclosure. Like, maybe, but I don't know about that idea anymore.
I don't know.
It's an idea that I had, and I'm not so sure if I believe it now. So I'm glad he asked that question.
Mm-hmm.
Any others? We probably should wrap this up soon. It's I'm just wanting to point out.
Oh,
I'm the timekeeper here.
It's 9:30.
Yeah, it's an hour and a half.
Okay.
So we may want to take one more and then just wrap it up. This person asks, I don't mind taking on this question about Jacques Vallée. One person asks, what are my thoughts or views on Jacques Vallée's control system? Could some of the UFO phenomenon be AI that are trying to communicate on a different level? Yeah, Vallée wrote about this back in the 1970s. In that regard, he was way, way ahead of the curve, looking at how this phenomenon was interacting with us and seemingly spurring us on into new developments of our society. I don't know if I believe that or not, but you can make the argument like they appear in certain ways and we are reacting, especially since the 1940s, we're reacting in a very significant way to this phenomenon. I do think it's entirely possible, I guess likely, that there are artificial intelligence elements to the UFO phenomenon. I have a hard time thinking that's not the case. But
a lot of people think that's the whole gray situation, right? Or could be with some of them, the smaller ones that are reported.
Yeah, I would.
Smaller.
I would think that they're artificially created.
Little androids,
organisms.
Some people.
I don't think they're naturally occurring biological entities. I mean, no one's ever described sex organs on these things.
Right.
So right off the bat, there's an issue right there. But on top of that, they absolutely act as though they have very well-defined jobs, so that they're created for certain jobs. And they've got very great capabilities in certain areas, but they're limited. Like they don't seem philosophical. They don't seem like they exercise a lot of free thinking. They don't come across that way. They're very, very hive-oriented.
Yeah, the worker bees comes across in a lot of the abduction research.
Right. Formidable, yeah. But I might be inclined to think that we are way more free than they are.
Mm-hmm. I don't know. And also, let's just touch on this because we've been thinking about it a lot. We want to come back to it. Dr. Karla Turner was talking about the possibility, proposing that virtual reality was an element of the whole ET abduction phenomenon.
Right. Yeah, we want to come back to this. She was talking about this more than 20 years ago.
That's right.
And using the phrase virtual reality.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how widespread that phrase was in our culture back then. I would think not very. It might have been out there. We should look into that. But she was talking about VR experiences to abductees back in the early and mid 90s.
And she was looking at it as a method of explaining why some people were having these incredible visual, visceral experiences, yet there could be someone close by who wasn't experiencing it all. We know this still occurs. We were just talking about this in our last meetup in Rochester.
Right.
This was a question people were asking. Some people saw things, some people didn't.
And it could be through implants in your mind, in your brain.
Could be.
So if you have a technological, her explanation is that it's probably technology. So there's something inside you that they put there. And as a result of that, you're getting a vision of them that no one else is getting, or you're hearing or experiencing things that no one else is. And when you're being taken, are you really being taken, or are they doing a VR, total realistic mind job to you, and you think you're being taken?
Or some non-local part of you being taken, you know,
right.
in this sort of holographic VR scenario. Who knows? I mean,
we're into some very, very out there ideas, admittedly, but
it's fascinating to talk about and think about. We're all here because, you know, we are exploring these things. So she was exploring some fascinating stuff, and it's worth mentioning for sure.
Yeah, I think we really want to come back and do a full show on Karla Turner.
Yeah,
she was really an amazing researcher, and she died back in 1996 of cancer. A couple of her lectures are on YouTube. A bunch of her I think at least four. She has 4 books, and they are available for purchase. So you can get those and read up on her and catch a couple of her YouTube lectures. There's a few that are available, and she was one of the more, like, we were just. You had this observation. You said there's a lot of people doing abduction, hypnosis, this type of thing, and how many are actual researchers? Like really, truly researching this phenomenon.
Right. Since Karla, it just occurred to me, it seems we kind of have a hole in the field with this. No one is diving into it from that perspective. I mean, David.
I would say Dave was.
Yeah, David was. I think he's sort of starting to move away from it. He's starting to wrap this up.
Right.
But who do we have now who's really?
Like really trying to get into the phenomenon, figure out the phenomenon.
It's not about like
a detective,
right?
Which is what she was trying to do. And she really was active for less than a decade, from the late '80s when she and her family were getting their own experiences that they could not explain conventionally. So that sparked her, and she threw herself into this. By the very late '80s, 88, 89. And she died in early 1996. So really through 1995, she was active. You
were saying, well, we really don't hear anyone talking about these things anymore, do we? The things that she was reporting, some of the scarier, gruesome stuff. And I said, parts. And then I realized, I don't know. I mean, we do have the regressions, but I don't know if there's someone looking at it like a detective who's not sort of doing the regressions, but pulling together all the reports of all the different regressions and just interviewing people themselves and digging in that way. I don't know.
One of the things that we were talking about is like one potential reason why no one is really doing what she did, which is coming to these types of conclusions. They were not happy conclusions, as maybe just because of how vicious elements of this very field of ours has become. Where these types of conclusions, who wants to put themselves out there, first of all?
Well, that's right, especially when she's has the conclusion that there's a joint effort going on.
What, ET and human and military?
Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah. So I mean, that would definitely dissuade me from going into that.
Well, let's definitely come back to Karla Turner. I think it's absolutely a worthwhile thing. Oh, and someone here writes, VR totally common in the mid-90s. Great.
Thank you.
Thank you, Light Warrior. PlayStation 1. Light Warrior produced PlayStation 1 games, and we were looking at it. So good to know.
Yeah.
That's mid-90s. Karla was talking about it, I believe, in the early 90s in her book, Taken. In fact, that was published in 1992, I'm pretty sure. And she's definitely talking about VR experiences in 1992. So that's pretty early. But I'm sure it was out there, but how widespread. Anyway, let's return to Karla Turner in the future.
Yeah, if she's right and they were using VR technology that you couldn't even tell the difference, here we are back looking at AI and whether certain factions will just say, have AI, and if that is so, then they would have had it for a long time ago, for a long time, and it would be highly developed. So if
one thing
that is what she thinks.
One thing I love about listening to Karla Turner is the way her mind worked. You know, again, we'll come back to this, but what's about her is that she was a real detective.
Yeah.
And she was brave. Oh my God, brave as hell.
Yeah.
And persevering. Like, she just was not, I think she was a very pragmatic realist. And I think that's something that I really respect about her.
Well, a realist that had her whole world blown open.
Yeah.
So she was able to be super open-minded.
Yeah.
Because she, of course, had her own experiences, as did her husband, as did her family. So there's deep, deep motivation for her to figure out what's going on, just for her own world to make sense. So that's a great mix, that pragmatism with that open-mindedness.
Right.
So,
all right. Well, I think we probably said everything we're going to say here. So
yes.
How about we wrap it up?
Yes. Thank you so much, everyone, for being here. I wish we could have seen a little bit more of the chat, and we didn't, but we just want to thank you for being here, because we know that you are. Thank you to the regulars. Thank you to the members. Thank you to everyone. Thank you to the new people, returning people. You make this worth it for us, and we are ever so grateful.
Just mention, as always, if you like what you see here, by all means, like the video, subscribe to the channel. There's always a lot going on here, and this way you get notifications. If you're really interested in what we do, you can subscribe to our newsletter. That is free. Go to Richard Dolan Members or richarddolanpress.com and the newsletter. Now, let me just mention something, because some people get confused. Subscribe to the newsletter, totally free, gives you all the information that we're up to. That is not the same as being a member at Richard Dolan Members. Okay, that's a different scenario. There's free content at Richard Dolan Members, and there's also subscriber-only content. That's how it works. I would certainly encourage you. You want to subscribe to the membership site? By all means, there's a lot there. But the newsletter is free, and that gives you a very good overview of a lot of the things that we're up to as well.
Yes. The newsletter will show you the free content. The newsletter will show you the member content. So if you're thinking of becoming a member, you can sort of get a preview and check it out.
Give you an idea.
We have all the conferences that we've signed, that we are going to listed in there, and we have some fun stuff that we always try to put at the end. So it's just a fun little way to.
People write in these awesome cartoons, so we put those at the bottom.
We have a new one for the week coming up that we love.
Are we able to mention the person who does those cartoons? Not necessarily. Cool guy, kind of famous, but we're not sure if he's.
We don't know whether we should say.
We'll have to
he's
ask
a member
him.
of our site.
Yeah, he's a member of our site.
We're happy to have him.
He's a rock star, so there you go. We can say that.
Yep.
Like a genuine rock and roll rock star. Rock and roll. Who says rock and roll anymore? All right. Anyway, I'm showing my age here. Here's a funny story. So when my daughter was like 13, she's 20 now. So as a classic teenager, she's into her music. And I just like innocently said, "Oh, so what band is that?" And this is her, "Dad, we don't have bands anymore." We don't have bands. And I think I said something like, "Oh yeah, what you have are corporate dominated shills who play music written by other people, and they don't play their own instruments either, right?" I don't know if I said all of that.
It's the new norm to them, right? Everything is the new norm.
My daughter's super cool now, but she was a teenager once, so there you go.
As we all were.
Yeah.
And I just want to finish by saying, if you haven't seen it and you don't know about it, the Russell Targ interview that we just uploaded has exclusive footage of the new Third Eye Spies movie in the first 11 minutes. So it's all at the beginning. If you want to check that out, that's something else. So there you go. Hope you have a wonderful night. And thank you to Pursuing X, as always, for helping us out and sending us the questions and running everything and moderating. So hope everybody had a great night. We did. And we'll see you soon.
Absolutely. Thanks, everyone. And we'll catch you next time. Later.
Take care.